welcome back. I'm coming to you with the mid-year tag because we're about halfway through the year. And the first thing I'm going to do actually is show you my blanket. This is a row for every book I read this year from 1st of January to 31st of December. And this is how long it is so far. I think it's not going to quite be as wide as I would like it. It's going to be more like a single bed size than a double bed size, but you can see I've read a variety of genres. I've got started with a crime. My most recent book was a crime, and I'm just going to see how it goes. I think if I did this again, I would make it different widths, different stitches for the number of pages, like make the rows wider for longer books. But actually, it's not going to be too bad. It's going to be a nice size blanket as it is. If it carries on like this, again, you can see I've read quite a lot of this fantasy colour, quite a lot of sci-fi. Here's a thriller patch. Not many not many clumps of colours, so it's going to be quite colourful when I'm done. So I have read 94 books this year, which is a ridiculous number of books, and is more than I'd read last year at this time, which was more than I'd read the year before at this time. But the last 2 years I've read an average page of 319 pages by the end of the year, and at the moment for my 94 books so far, my average page count is 336. So my goal for the year, hello darling, my goal for the year was to have more than 319 pages on average read, and I am managing that. So my most typical book, which is not in any of the tags that I've ever seen, but I like to put it in there anyway, would be medium pace, 300 to 500 pages, fantasy with adventurous, mysterious, dark moods in them. And so the most typical book I've read this year, that's what Storygraph tells me I've been reading this year, and the most one that fits all of those, and which I really loved, was Sing Me to Sleep by Gabi Burton. This is a siren who's a serial killer, gets given the job of finding out who's committing the murders that she's doing. So it's a little bit fantasy, a little bit crime, a little bit mythology, and it was really lovely. And that's Sing Me to Sleep by Gabi Burton. The best book this year was Moonstorm by Yoon Ha Lee. That's my favourite. So actually, the question just says best book this year. I couldn't choose one. So fiction, Moonstorm by Yoon Ha Lee, which is a MIL SF about someone who was in a rebellion, but then gets kind of kidnapped by the Empire, and she gets into this kind of cadet school, and then finds her family, and her loyalties are being tested. And it was really beautiful because Yoon Ha Lee writes beautiful MIL SF. That's what he does, and I've loved everything he read, and this was my favourite of the year so far, fiction-wise. But I'd also like to mention my favourite non-fiction of the year. I haven't read as much non-fiction as fiction, but Jesus and John Wayne by Kirsten Kobas, and this is about how American, and in particular how American Christianity got to be in the weird place it is now, which if you're just if you're a Christian from outside America looking at American Christianity, it can be a little bit like, how the hell did you get here? And and it's very compassionately written, it's very positively written, like this is how people got that way, but she's not judgy at all, which I'm a little bit inclined to be judgy, I'm afraid, and I'd rather not be. So I found that both fascinating and also just really, really nicely written, really kindly written. Okay, my favourite sequel. Actually, I do have a physical copy of this. I think I've read more ebooks than physical books this year, or a higher proportion of ebooks than I have in previous years, so or certainly in the last year. So I'm not holding up a lot of books. I've dropped my cheat sheet. Not holding up a lot of books, but favourite sequel, As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. You can see I love this cover, which was, if I remember correctly, it was just the one that was in the works. Might have been Amazon, I suppose. But this is Pip, who was doing her EPQ in the first book about a cold case. She's getting threatening messages. There's a kidnap plot, and it's sort of how Pip uses her skills that she's built up over the first two books. And it's twisty and turny, and it's just a really great book. But you do really need to have read at least one and possibly two as well for it to make sense. So the next question will be new release I haven't read yet or most anticipated. And I am sure there was something I saw recently that was like, oh, this just come out, I'll put it on my list, but I don't remember what it was. So I've got two that are kind of like I know are coming out at some point this year, and I'm reasonably excited about. One of them is For Duck's Sake by Donna Andrews. This is a series of bird puns titled mysteries, cozy mysteries set in West Virginia, which are about, maybe they're set in Virginia, which are about a blacksmith and her large family, and she gets her fingers in all the pies like she's deputy mayor or something as well, and there's always a crime, and she always like pulls together her various familial resources, and I really love that. I mean, she's I quite like Meg, the blacksmith protagonist, but I just really like that it's a giant cast, which you often don't get in cozy mysteries or something, because they kind of like they move quickly on to the next one. But there's a large recurring cast, and there's a lot of bird puns. And the other is Silver and Lead by Shannon McGuire, which is the latest in the Toby Day series, and I don't know anything about it apart from that, except I really loved last year's Toby Day, so this year should be good. Biggest disappointment for me this year, Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I loved the first 2/3. It was starting to get a little bit, and then about 3/4 of the way I just lost all interest in it. And I was just like, I really don't want to pick up this book. And eventually I just went, well, I'm not going to. I'm just going to move on, because I was getting all slumpy over it. I was really enjoying it. And I don't know, there was a twist that I didn't see coming, and I probably should have done. Probably you're going to be like, there wasn't a twist in the Bone Season, but I didn't see it coming, and I was disappointed by it, and it just made me lose all interest. So, sorry. And I'm sure it's not a bad book. It's just not for me. So I'm not going to like rant and rave about how no one should read this stuff. No. It's just not my cup of tea. Biggest surprise, and this book was not a great book. It was Lights Out by Navessa Allen, and this is a dark romance. And I must have known that when I put it on my list. However, when I picked it up to read it, I thought it was a thriller, possibly a crime, maybe horror. It was none of those things. It was dark romance, and I was just like, you could use an editor. You could, not sure about this, but actually it was genuinely funny, and it was a genuinely new experience for me, and it was definitely something like she'd written for a mate that had got a wider audience. Like, it was someone, she was like, wouldn't it be funny if this happened? I don't really know how much to talk about it, but it's dark, super dark, funny, and romantic, I guess. Okay, favourite new author, and there have been a lot of book authors where I've kind of read one book and been like, oh yeah, I really like, I'd like to read more of those. But the one I'm going to mention, what I'm going to highlight here, is Amy Tan. I read the Backyard Bird Chronicles, which was a really sweet account of her learning about birds and learning to birdwatch and improving her drawing skills, and it's all with Tan's own illustrations in California. And it was just really sweet and really engaging, and I went out and acquired 2 more Amy Tans, which are now on my bookshelf, and I'll get round to at some point, but that's why I'm saying Amy Tan, because she's the one that I've actually followed through with. Favourite new character, Satoru from the Travelling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arikawa comes to mind. He's a little bit of a loner, a little bit aloof, but he's got this cat who kind of enters his life because, I don't know, they just kind of coexist for a while, and then the cat has an accident, and then they end up living together. And it was just a really lovely book, but also this guy, he's really good at friendship and he's really good at keeping friends, and he was just super sweet, and so that's why I picked him. Book that made me cry. Well, my first thought was Travelling Cat Chronicles because I was just talking about it, which did make me cry. But the one I really want to say here is Chlorine by Jade Song, which is about a swimmer, and it's about self-harm, and it's about the way we treat young girls that can be somehow awful, and it's about her learning to be free. And it's about her learning to be free, and it was beautiful, utterly beautiful horror, and I definitely recommend it. Chlorine by Jade Song. And the last book is Book That Made Me Happy, which I put Time with the Cat by Tansy, Rayner, Roberts. There's just something cheering about Roberts' writing, and there's a Viking cat, and there's time travel, and it's a bit like The Chronicles of St. Mary's by Jodie Taylor, but with more cats. Which, yeah, so if that sounds like your thing, then definitely. And it's light-hearted and sweet. Yeah, so what about you? Have you read any of those? Did you love them? The ones that I really loved, if you've got any recommendations based off that, I would love to hear you. What's your favourite book of the year? What's your favourite sequel? And what's your typical book of the year? That's what I'd like to know. And I will see you soon. Bye.